breakfast puppies?
This podcast contains adult language and content and is meant for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
You are listening to the Glitterbois.
So 8.5 by 11 is the standard, and if you can get the college ruled, I feel like you can fit more into it. Number 2 is definitely preferred. I do, however, like a bit of flair at the end of it. I go with like a green or a purple eraser.
What the heck are you talking about, Matthew?
There's many ways to do character sheets, but one has stood the test of time. It can be done in the 70s, it can be done modern, and it can be done by candlelight with, some rocks being used as dice. And that is the venerable paper and pen. Sill.
Today we are talking about how to make an effective character sheet, or which character sheets do you like, or what's your preference, or fuck character sheets, and keep it all in my mind. I don't know anybody who plays that way.
No, I was going to say that person is suspected and is probably the devil.
I have met one person who was like that, and it was in a Palladium game, and they were a theoretical physicist, so the ability to keep complex math in your head. I never caught them cheating once, so I was inclined to believe they were actually doing it.
If I were playing with that person, I imagine I wouldn't be playing with them for very much longer because they would have been weeded out in session 0.
But yeah, character sheets. So many types, so many, on paper, form fillable, print them out. What do we like? What do we not like?
Well, I'll tell you one thing I don't like, and I'm just going to go there. The official Palladium character sheets have never done it for me. Just so much text on one single sheet of paper, and it's also small. I've never been able to use them. I think I gave it a shot on multiple occasions throughout my gaming career, and never once have those sheets satisfied me.
It's got to be hard to use the Palladium ones, though, because the sheer scope. Like, you can't do 16 sheets for the 16 new RCCs that you put in that book. The sheer scope of each one has got to just be daunting. One
of the problems that you encounter with that approach is that they make a character sheet for every class. That's well, they did at first. I know that with fantasy, at least, they did a character sheet themed for every class, and that just takes up so much paper in your book that it becomes a record-keeping nightmare. It would have been so much more effective to just build a functional universal sheet for the system.
Yeah. So the Path guy did a great series of 3-5 generators and fill-inables, basically. And I honestly feel that, okay, you know what? Strike all that. Let's just start with what I don't like. I don't want a place for my character sketch. I don't want something that's going to use up a lot of my printer ink for style. I don't want that. I want easily checkable boxes that make sense and are linked to the things that matter to that. Like, God, now I'm doing it. Next to your ability scores, you have your saves. That makes sense to me. As long as, like in D&D, it's tied to that. When it's 3 pages back and not tied, that bothers me. I need, especially in a game like any Palladium game, I need conciseness and not so much flavor on the character sheet. The flavor is all in your mind, and it doesn't need to be there, in my humble opinion.
I tend to agree with that. I have found myself avoiding concise character sheets like the plague over the years. and that's partially because anything that my character is going to be doing on the regular it's not uncommon for me to rip the text right out of the book and drop it on some paper and staple it to the character sheet just so I have it at my fingertips, don't have to look it up quickly. My approach to character sheets tends to be, what is the GM like? And what can the GM use most effectively? Because I remember how many times back in the old days, or even nowadays online, where the GM's got a quick look at somebody's character sheet. So they got to be able to find the information fast. And so something that's nice, concise, and is in line with what the GM needs to see on the first page, and then everything else after that is whatever weird random order that I've hacked apart, taken apart a PDF, reassembled to work for me. That's how I do it.
Well, if we're talking about GMs, oftentimes a GM will have a preferred sheet that they will just have everybody use. So in that case, that they've already got you covered right there.
Right.
They can grab that sheet from you and already know where it is because they're familiar with it.
Mm-hmm.
Me, for my characters, when I am a player, I am with Matthew. I like pen and paper. I find that a nice college rule 8.5 by 11 sheet or legal pad version is I can write the 8 stats in the top, near the top left, underneath my name, class, and race and stuff. To the right of that, I write the derived bonuses. I played a lot of AD&D second edition, and back in the day, the sheet had your stats, and then it had the derived modifiers for each one of those stats. And I got so used to that format that my brain functions that way.
And bars, lift gates.
Yeah. Immediately to the right of that, I'll do a concise little block of my basic combat stuff, my attacks per melee, my total strike mod, and so on. Directly underneath the stats, my skills list. Like, honestly, my first page is basically stats, combat mods, skills.
I am a big fan of the skills for Palladium games being broken out into like 3 columns for your class, electives, and secondaries, because in a lot of the systems, depending on how you got that skill, changes the values for it.
Yeah.
And so I like it when the sheet recognizes that and has that built in.
Yeah, I agree. The 3 different types of skills and their associated how much more you get each level. Yeah, it's a new layer of complexity that only Palladium has to deal with, and that definitely needs to be a part of a sheet.
I would make a distinction here that Palladium players may or may not be familiar with how different the skills can be across the various Palladium properties. If you're going back to first ed, then you've got your OCC skills, your elective skills, and your secondary skills. However, your OCC skills can all draw from the elective or secondary list. But then you also have class abilities like the priests, raise dead or turn dead or whatever, and other things that have percentage per level. Then you got the weapon proficiencies, which do you list those separately or do you keep those with your electives? And then so on and so on. Then come second ed and also rifts. Instead of electives and secondaries, you have other skills and secondaries. And it's a little, it can be daunting if you're trying to keep track of it all in your head and apply the same logic from one Palladium system to another when building a character.
Yeah, and other systems within the Palladium family are definitely like that. One of the best Ninjas and Super Spies sheets I ever saw had your basically overall summary character sheet, and then followed by up to 3 combat form sheets, one for each style, because one of the big conceits of Ninjas and Super Spies is the pre-MMA things don't mix conceit. And since hand-to-hand combat is so crazy and over the top in Ninjas and Super Spies, you practically need a full sheet for each style.
Yeah.
Did Ninjas and Super Spies ever adapt to include MMA?
No. that would have meant they put a product out for it after, I don't know, when was UFC 1?
Yeah, it's old. No, they're both old. but
Equipment list. I don't think it needs to be on a sheet. It will invariably outgrow the space that the character sheet will give for it, and you will be hunting between two. I think it's best just to leave it off. That is always a separate sheet of paper.
oh yeah, I can't remember the last time I recorded equipment on an official character sheet. It was always like a composition book or a separate notebook that I just sort of kept sections for different characters.
Yeah, other than the weapons, I always just tack on an extra piece of paper.
My first DM, by the name of Danny, hi Danny, I know you listen, was draconian about if you don't have it written down, you don't have it. And if you don't have the weight, you probably don't have it either because you've been carrying it. And I honestly, if it's over like 50 pounds, I think that's reasonable.
I like that approach in many games. There's many other games where I think a more freeform approach to hand waving equipment is totally fine. But if we're doing some kind of a very hardcore dungeon crawl or survival based kind of thing, then I'm of the same opinion. If it's not written down, you don't have it. Unless you can find a way to scrounge it up from the environment, then sure. And once you do that, be sure to write it down. Otherwise, you don't have it.
Also, scrounging from the environment should be on your skill tree area. If it's not written down there, you're not doing it. Sorry, Danny. Anyway, it's very interesting though. I think that this topic is very game centric, and what you need for Fate or what you need for Savage Worlds is way different than what you need for any of the D&Ds, which is very different from what you need for any of the Palladiums. Oh, and inside the Palladiums, it's very different from a lot of the other Palladiums.
I would say though that at least the Palladium systems roughly are similar. Really, on the whole, they all have the same stats. They all have the same basic combat stuff with a few variations. And you can apply the same approach if you were playing like an old school OSR game or AD&D first or second edition.
Yeah,
like it's the same approach to building character and building, buying your equipment list at the start of the game, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Although they had vastly fewer skills.
I think there are advantages, and, I made light of it earlier, but there are advantages to just the simple pen and paper. One, you will never have to update it. Your device will never run out of battery. You will never lose the password to the form that you're sending. There's so many less ways beyond fire or water or loss, which means you have to go outside of your house for that to happen.
I own a rabbit. I don't need to go outside of my house to lose paper.
Fair. But it seems to me a much more foolproof way of just dealing with it. And also, at the end of it, you have a doodle to work. You have something that you've scribbled in the margins. You have something that you've drawn little designs on. You have little notes and little maps and all the things put on it. And if it's a long enough thing, you begin to have an illuminated manuscript. And you really can't do that with a PDF. You really can't do that with an iPad. And it's fuller and it's deeper and it's richer.
Actually, I can do that very easily with a PDF and a tablet. Modern,
but I've seen your basement and not mine.
So awesome. Yeah.
Okay, allow me to reiterate. I can't do that. I can't even get my voice to come through half the time.
I know, but you're an old man who doesn't embrace technology.
Fuck. I embrace it. It's just covered with grease and keeps going everywhere. I'll tell you, dude, honestly, and as an aside, I live in terror of that day. The day where I'm like, and I programmed the VCR? How? And it's just, fuck, dude, it's coming, and it's coming for us all. But, I mean, it is a strange thing to realize that one day you will be helpless against modern tech. You will not understand. You have a certain amount of iterations that you can fill up in your mind of how things work. And the more plastic your mind is, the more iterations you have, but you still have a finite amount, you know? And that day will come. So where is the topic, Doc?
So speaking of topic, back to character sheets. There are some decent fan-made character sheets that I've seen for Palladium's games. I think the two that stand out most, especially to me, there's one that I found on DeviantArt from a fella who has actually, I think, done work in several Palladium books. It goes by the name of Madman Mike.
Oh, yes.
He's made some Pathfinder style Palladium sheets. So they have a much more modern presentation, a lot more, less cramped. Unfortunately, that also means less information, but still they're basic sheets. I use them whenever I play games at conventions and one-shots, because I find that they give exactly enough that this player needs to worry about for the next 4 hours of play.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there is a problem with them that I was going to say, bring up earlier when we were talking about printing. They have colored backgrounds.
Oh,
I hate
God
that so
damn it.
much.
Why do they do that?
I just want a simple black and white sheet. I understand wanting something pretty, but I think that should be
no. And anyone who can program that in should know better. I mean, anyone who can put that together has used a printer, has bought toner. They should know better.
Yeah.
Bad people.
Why you step onto creative class like that, Matthew?
Because I can. You know?
The other sheet that I want to give a call out to is from a fellow on Reddit who goes by Shonic Burn, who has made this modern, very, very slick, modern Rifts character sheet that's multi-pages and has spots dedicated for all different kinds of things. Those sheets are badass. I don't think he's updated them in a year or more, but they took some inspiration from the original 5e format and then just like Riftsified it and made it a bit more tech looking, and it's beautiful. It is a beautiful sheet. Again, it's Rifts specific and it's multiple pages. If that's your thing, go for it.
Is there a Chaos Earth character sheet out there that is like got 3/4 done and is missing the last quarter?
I would say that since it is clearly a complete role-playing game, that character sheet has got to be in the book. It's got to be. It's a complete role-playing game.
I really like the extending of the gags. I truly do.
But personally, I want to give a shout out to me and another of our listeners, Holly, who's also in our Saturday game. The two of us have been putting together a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet to make characters for Palladium Fantasy First Edition. It's so nice. Having just being able to put in your stats, select your basic choices, and select your skills, and it handles all of the calculations. It's wonderful.
Now, if you can just get it to output to a printable character sheet.
Well, it's fine when I print it.
Huh? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to play with it. I must be getting a bad margin call then.
Just an old man bad at technology.
Yeah, I was going to say, I holds up number 2 pencil.
Oh, I know when my day is coming. I can see it on the horizon. I'm pretty positive it's going to be related to making use of AI tech. I just don't want to. I don't think it's that I don't understand it. I just don't want it.
It's okay, guys.
Yeah.
When the uprising comes and the Luddites are your only hope left, just rest assured, I have an entire stump worth of number 2 pencils. I have pounds of erasers.
Yeah.
I've never used a dice roller in my life because they are, in fact, the devil. I can take it camping and not have to worry about power. And that's, if you also, utterly unrelated side note, if you have never gamed under the stars with pen, paper, dice, and by firelight, may I highly recommend that experience to you.
It's one of my favorite things. Yeah.
Yep. Nothing like trying to find a die by moonlight.
Glow in the dark dice, man.
It's my travel dice, so it's like this big too. That makes it extra special.
You got to get this glow in the dark dice. Yep.
Have them, but yeah.
Well, I think we have talked about this as much as we can.
Yep.
Any final thoughts, folks?
Yeah, mine is clearly superior and it works in every system. You can beat reeds and lay them out in the sun and then char a stick and you got it.
Jacob?
I do have a love for the old pen and paper. And as someone who in his early days could not even afford a nickel to go down to the grocery store to use the copier that they had in the lobby, and was literally tracing out character sheets by laying over the thinnest college rule I could and doing
that gives me sudden shivers of memory.
I mean,
whoa.
I mean, I'm not going to lie about where I started. That's where I started. Now as a history of being a pro GM, running online, doing therapeutic GM, and learning the power of computer tools to make it more approachable for folks, I tend to be super, super flexible, and I know what works for me doesn't work for other folks. Most people don't want to carry around 12 pages like I do for every single character. But, there's a lot of good things out there. Find out what works for you and your game master and roll with it.
For my characters, I like pen and paper. It's the easiest thing to do. However, I've been gaming for a very long time, and I generally know the systems that I'm playing well enough that all I need is a few notes and a sheet of paper. If I am running a game, chances are I'm running an old game, but for new players, because that's what I like to do. Especially with Palladium, I do my best to bring in new players, people who are not experienced with it already. For that, I always encourage the use of as modern a sheet as can be acquired to better fit their expectations of gaming and make it more comfortable for them to learn something new.
And as much as I hate graphical noise on character sheets, I do like evocative character sheets. For instance, there is a Palladium Recon character sheet out there that is entirely done in the typeset used by U.S. Army issued typewriters from the Vietnam era. And so if you can grab those tiny things on a functional character sheet, I love it.
Dungeon Crawl Classics expansion, American Survival Guide, has one of the most chaotic and cool looking character sheets. Now, finding anything on it can be kind of a pain in the ass, but that sheet evokes the sheer inanity of the setting perfectly.
Is it the tan recon character sheet?
I believe so.
That's so cool. I'm looking at it right now. Yeah.
Let's go ahead and close this out. We wish to once again invite all of you to join us on Discord. Drop into our very active channels and tell us your own character sheet preferences. Tell us the stories of the character sheets that you still hold on to from those days. Show us pictures of this gnarled, mustard stained, beer colored sheet, and maybe we'll show you ours too.
Yeah, and definitely share the links to your favorite character sheets out there on the web. We're always looking for the next great character sheet, something that solves a problem people didn't realize we had with character sheets. So if you can find it, throw it out there. Tell us why you like it.
I was absolutely going to echo that. Yeah. And if anyone is a genius and really wants to spend the next 40 years of their life compiling every known way to play a character in the Palladium setting into one massive, pathable, choosable, drop-down menuable character sheet, you would be the unsung hero, and there are worse things you can do with your life. If you did that, you would matter. You would be important.
You would matter to us. And we love you.
I mean, you could be one more person with like a hobby or a muscle car or whatever inane thing you do that brings you some sort of joy. Or you could be the person that brought joy to millions by making the perfect Palladium role-playing game character sheet. So get to it, because I'm not going to do it.
Starships, magic, mystic martial arts, romance. All of these can be found in A Cloak of Blades by Isaac Scher. You might have heard my name before. I've done a lot of voiceover work for Breakfast Puppies, and I've recently released my first novel. It's available on Amazon as an ebook and paperback, and you can get it for free if you have a Kindle Unlimited subscription. I do hope you'll support my work as you're supporting Breakfast Puppies, and it's been a pleasure talking with you today. Have a good one.
You've been listening to The Glitterbois, a Palladium Books fan podcast. Glitterbois, Rifts, the Megaverse, and all other such topics are the property of Kevin Siembieda and Palladium Books. Please buy all their stuff and help keep them in print and making more games. You can order directly at palladiumbooks.com, and their entire catalog is available digitally at Drive-Thru RPG as well. Our opening music is 8-Bit Bass and Lead by Furby Guy from freesound.org. This closing music is Caravana by Philip Gross, available at freemusicarchive.org. All sound effects used are self-made or acquired via Creative Commons Zero license. If you like what you have heard, find us on Twitter and Facebook as The Glitterbois. That's BOIS. And check us out online at breakfastpuppies.com/glitterbois. And also join us on the Breakfast Puppies Network Discord at breakfastpuppies.com/discord. And if you want to help us out, please spread the word and help us build a community. Thanks again for listening. We'll catch you next time.
Don't stop recording, because I need to say something. I love whenever I say something that has a lot of triggering potential around it. I like how you're normally a fairly mobile person when you're talking into the mic, and I like how you where you just freeze and you open your eyes and you go, is this the time this fucking redneck goes and alienates the entire fan base? Do I have to edit this shit? I'm like, no, decent monkey.
Frantically checking to make sure we're not accidentally streaming live.
No, it's just so funny to me, because you're very animated, and I love when you don't even blink, man.